Do you remember the night you came here? You had to have noticed the signs.
What?
I know it's not you're going to say, but there ain't no other way. So stay.
You are truly as he anticipated. This is truly an unjust game. But if my voice is reaching you, I beg you, please overcome this game and save the world.
Welcome to a brand new segment on the Animen YouTube channel. I don't have a name for it or anything, but it's basically gonna be me talking to you guys about anime video games. And I figured what better way to start this out than with maybe the best JRPG franchise of all time? Maybe. I'm talking about the Persona franchise. I'm going to be talking to you guys about all the Persona games that I've played, which is not every Persona game. There's a lot out there, and there's just some that I have yet to play. And so before I get to the games that I am going to talk about, let me just get the ones that I haven't played out of the way, just so you guys, don't have to wonder, is he going to talk about this Persona game? Is he going to talk about... I'm going to let you know what I'm not going to talk about, simply because I haven't played those games. This also isn't going to be some big in-depth discussion or a history of or anything like that. I really just want this to feel and kind of come across like just a casual conversation from me to you guys. So to start things off, the Persona games I haven't played would be the very first Persona and Persona 2, which I want to say was actually split into two games, but I'm not entirely sure. But either way, I haven't played Personas 1 or 2. I also haven't played Persona 3 on the original PS2, including the FES version. So I'm not going to be covering those games. But speaking of Persona 3, I did play Persona 3 Portable, and that's the first game we're going to discuss right here, right now. P3P was a game as it says in the title, Persona 3 Portable, was on portable system. I want to say PS Vita. I don't think it was PlayStation Portable. I don't think it was PSP, but I could be wrong. I didn't play it on that, though. I don't have a PSP and I don't have a Vita, but I do have a PS4, and they did eventually port it to PS4. I think for a lot of people, Persona 5 might have been their first Persona game. And if you actually go back and play the previous ones like 3 and 4, and we will get to 4, it's very familiar. And the best way I can describe it is it's like Persona 5 simplified. You get what I'm saying? Like, if you thought Persona 5 was too complex during, like, the turn-based combat, or just anything really, Personas 3 and 4 are like a simplified version of that. So if you want something easier, you should play P3P. It's really good, really simple Persona game. I'm not going to go too much into the characters or what actually happens in the story, simply because Persona 3 Reload is coming out, and that's also why I'm making this video. I figured it'd be good timing. Persona 3 Reload looks really good, and I'm excited to play it. But if you want a taste of Persona 3 early, you have options out there, and I think the easiest option right now is P3P, because it is available on PS4, I believe digital only. But it is, I would say, a good game. Now let's move on to Persona 4, which I have right here. I have a physical copy with a bonus disc included. As you can see there, you have 2 discs. This bonus disc, I believe, is the soundtrack. I don't think it tells me on the back. This is maybe, in all honesty, my favorite Persona game. Even though 5 is better, and trust me, 5 is better, but I think I still like 4 just like a little bit more. And I'll go into a little more depth as to why. So, with Persona 4, originally on the PS2, how that game starts out, it's pretty familiar, again, if you've played Persona 5, but you haven't played 4. If you go into 4, you'll see some similarities. These Persona games like to follow a certain blueprint, really. If you've played enough of them, I think you can tell, like, okay, there's a bit of a pattern here, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think each game still is different enough from each other to where you can't really say these are just the same exact games, you know. But in Persona 4, your main character, which you can name whatever you want, he goes from living in the city, he's a city boy, to having to go live with his uncle for a year, and his uncle lives in a small town out in the countryside, and you go there and you transfer to a new school there, and you're there for a year, and you're making friends, and Persona things happen, as is the norm with these Persona games. Sounds familiar, right? Yeah, and also, sure enough, you do go to like an alternate dimension, again, as is the Persona way, but I really like how they do it in this one. Whereas in Persona 5, you do it through an app on the smartphone, which makes sense. This one, it happens in a time period where there's not really smartphones, I don't think, because the game takes place in, I want to say 2009, 2010. Either that or it's like 2010, 2011. I can't quite remember. Smartphones, if they were out during that time, I don't think they were, or if they were expensive and really hard to get. Like it was hard to get your hands on a smartphone because you just didn't have that kind of money. Whereas today, everyone has a smartphone. I mean, they're still expensive, but those are really the only phones that are really made these days, so people just get a smartphone. But with this one, instead of using an app, you go through a TV. Like you go through a television screen. This game, another reason why I think I like this one a little bit more than Persona 5 is because of the shadows that you face in the game. In Persona 5, you fight the shadows of these greedy, evil adults, right? And you take them on and you try to have a change of heart for them, and it's really good. I don't want to come off like I'm downplaying Persona 5, because I'm not. That's a fantastic game. But in Persona 4, what you do is you fight your own shadows. Like your group of friends all have to encounter their own shadows, and what I love about this game is that they don't pull any punches, because these shadows will reveal the character's deepest thoughts, deepest desires that they try their best to like tuck away and let nobody else see. But these shadows just put it out there for them and their friends to hear. Like I said, they don't hold back, and I love that, because these protagonists that you're rooting for, you get to hear the side of them that doesn't make them exactly come off as all that great. You know, it's basically showing all their faults, all their negative feelings and thoughts towards themselves and the world and specific people, and oh, it is so good. To me, this is what makes an M-rated game really feel mature. Because why do we have M-rated games? Like, what makes them M-rated normally? It's usually like blood and gore, it's like sexual themes, partial nudity, or just full-on nudity, excessive language, you know, stuff like that. That stuff usually will create an M-rated game, and like, fair enough, I'm not saying that it shouldn't be, but that still doesn't make it feel like it's a mature game. It just makes it feel like your kids shouldn't play it. Persona 4 feels like a mature game. Like, if you are a mature thinking adult, it feels really good to play. And really good to see these themes in the game explored and done with such sincerity and realness. Like I said, I've said it like 2 or 3 times, I'll say it one more time. This game does not pull its punches when it comes to just these characters and their bad side. What makes it even better is, at first, your friends in the group, they deny it. They're like, this is not me, this is not who I am. And by doing so, they have to fight their shadow, who like transforms into like a giant boss, and you have your big boss fight. You do that, and then when you beat them, your friend confronts their shadow and is just like, you know what? You are me. I am you. At the end of the day, I can't keep denying this. This is who I really am, and I have to accept that. I have to accept that part of me, rather than, you know, trying to bury it. And by doing so, their shadow transforms into their persona. And I'm just like, I remember seeing that for the first time with Yosuke's shadow, and then next after that was like Chie's and Yukiko's, and I was just like, this is so good. And then embracing that that's who they are, but that doesn't mean that they become evil. It's just more so like, this is who I am, and I have to accept that. And if I want to change that part of me, then I have to first accept that that's a part of me. And that's the conflict that these characters were running into in Persona 4, is that they were denying these sides, but by denying that's part of who they are, they can't change. They can't change for the better. They can't grow. And that's so good. I love the themes of Persona 4. It's so good. If they do a remake of this game, I'm going to be so excited. Of course, I would rather they remake Persona 4 Golden specifically, which is actually my favorite Persona game. I know I said Persona 4 is my favorite Persona game, but it's actually Persona 4 Golden, because it's Persona 4 with more content and more great content, and it's fantastic. But there is a new character that you can befriend and build relationships with, which, if you've played Persona games, you know what that is. Everyone's familiar with relationship building, social stat building, working a part-time job, going to clubs in school, all that fun stuff, all that everyday slice of life stuff in the Persona franchise. It's in Persona 3, it's in Persona 4, it's in Persona 5, and it's done well in all of them. Persona 4 Golden adds a new character that you can build a relationship with, and if you get it to a certain point by a certain date in the game, you will unlock a new... They're not called palaces, but they're kind of like palaces. It's done really well. I won't spoil that, because Persona 4 Golden, if you haven't played that one, it is available on PS4 as well as P3P, and I highly recommend it, guys. I highly recommend it. If you haven't played either of them, you don't really need to get both. I'd say just get Persona 4 Golden. You know, it's either on Vita, if you have PS Vita, or PS4. So we covered the Persona 3 games I've played, and we've covered the Persona 4 games I've played, right? Wrong! We gotta talk about the first Persona game I ever played, which was not Persona 4 or 5, it was Persona 4 Arena. I don't know how many people can say that this was their first Persona game. Usually your first Persona game is one of the mainline Persona games, but no, my first Persona game was the action, or not action, but fighting game sequel to Persona 4. I remember like my older brother Daniel, he got the game for the PS3. He was really excited to play it. He brought me over to play it with him, because fighting games are so much more fun with another person. And I was like, yeah, sure, you know, I'm down. And I really enjoyed this game. Persona 4 Arena is a really well-made fighting game for multiplayer. Okay, and it's the same in terms of Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, which is part 2 of the sequel to Persona 4. And once again, it's a really well-made fighting game. Like, the mechanics are really good, the combos are a lot of fun, the roster is good. It's just the single-player content, the story mode, it's not it's not good. It's not. That's not to say that the story is bad or anything. No, it's a good story. Persona is yet to disappoint me in terms of its storytelling, along with a few other factors. The problem I have with this game's single-player story mode is the same problem I have with other fighting games' single-player story mode, is that it's very boring when you're not fighting. And what Persona 4 Arena and Arena Ultimax both like to do is, if you do the story mode, it's like still background, and then you have, you know, the one character here and the one character there, and they're talking to each other, and their mouths might go up and down, their poses might change, their facial expressions might change based on what they're saying. But it's just, you know, it's just text, and then it's a box text, just, and it's like, that's fine for like 5 minutes, but that's most of the story mode. And you could sit through several minutes of just box text. Just it got to a point where I was like, I know I'm skipping story. I just want to get to the fun parts of the game, which is the fighting, which only usually lasts like less than a minute. I finish every fight in like less than a minute, and then I'm back to like 10 minutes of talking, and it's just And Persona 4 Arena is not the only fighting game guilty of doing this when it comes to their single player content. And it's just, that's too bad. I feel like they could have done a lot better. But like I said, these games, if you like fighting games and you always got someone to play with locally, grab these games. Persona 4 Arena Ultimax is on PS4, not just PS3, and I do believe its online servers are still up, so you could still play multiplayer online, but I don't know if there's really that many people online playing it these days. I could be wrong. I'm not an online multiplayer kind of guy. I don't really like to do that with any games. I've done it before with some, but it's never really been my thing. I usually like to play games by myself, or if I'm going to play with someone, I usually like to play with someone I know, and I usually like to play with them in person, old school way, before there was online multiplayer. If you were doing a multiplayer game, it was because your buddy was right next to you with their controller, and you were both looking at the same television screen. That's how I prefer to do things. I'm old-fashioned, what can I say? But if you're genuinely interested in these games, I would say just get Arena Ultimax instead of getting both. Mainly because Arena Ultimax not only has the story that it's telling, which is part 2 of the sequel, it also has everything in part 1. Like, the part 1 story from just regular Persona 4 Arena is in this game. Finally, we can get to the big one. The most played Persona game of all time, I want to say. This is probably the one that people played the most. I'm talking about, and I got a physical case for this one, Persona 5. And I have the steel case of this. As you can see here, this is the steel case version of the game. This usually came in like a special edition, but my brother Daniel, the one I brought up earlier, he let me borrow his copy, and he had the steel case. He got like this super cool special edition that he pre-ordered and came with some cool stuff. And when he was done playing the game, he let me borrow it because I didn't have any games really that I was interested in playing back at home, and I also didn't have that many games in general, whereas my brother did, and he would just let me borrow his games. Like, I borrowed Tomb Raider from him, I borrowed Infamous Second Son from him, and I borrowed Persona 5 from him, which I was hesitant to do because I like RPGs, like, they're fun, but I'm not into turn-based combat. I hate turn-based combat, okay? It's, almost any game I've played that had turn-based, I was not a fan of. Like, there's only, like, a small handful of games where I enjoyed the turn-based combat. I just really needed a game to play, and my brother said it is a lot of fun, and there's a lot more to the game than just turn-based combat, so I was like, alright, I'll give it a try, and I tried it, and I really liked it. This was a game where when I beat it, I feel like other people can relate to this, but I played the game, and I remember beating it and the credits rolling, and I just sat there with a really bittersweet feeling. That is because I was so happy that I beat the game, but I was also really sad that it was over. Like, I did not want this game to end, because I loved these characters so much. I loved building relationships and the social stats and all that, and going to school, just all that stuff. And I also liked going to the palaces and just looking at it. Like, I loved the art in this game, I loved the style of this game, and the music. Holy crap, guys. Let's pause real quick and talk about the music of Persona. One of the best franchises to have music, honestly, in video games. I can't think of too many other franchises in video games that have music as good as Persona or better. I'm sure they're out there, and we all have our opinions, but Persona's soundtrack for each of the games I played never miss. They are all top tier. Persona 3's soundtrack, or P3P, so good. Persona 4, both regular and golden, is probably my favorite soundtrack, which is another reason Persona 4 is probably my favorite in the franchise. Like, Persona 5's is really, really good. Like, the soundtrack is really, really good. But Persona 4's is just a little bit better. Just a little bit. Like, I love Last Surprise, but I'd rather take Reach Out to the Truth. I could listen to Reach Out to the Truth for hours and never get sick of it. And then also like just the town music is so good in all the games, but Persona 4's town music is still my favorite. Okay, but back to Persona 5. I didn't want it to end. So I was kind of sad that it was, but at the same time, I was so satisfied with the game. And it is best that it ended where it is. You don't want a game to go too long. A game like this needs to have a beginning, middle, and end. And it did it so well. The pacing in this game, really well. The characters, I love the Phantom Thieves. I love all the characters. On Takamaki is my favorite. And if you want to know why, I've made a video a while back talking about On Takamaki and why I love her so much, so you can check that video out. It's here on the channel. You'll find it. She's there on the thumbnail. But yeah, I love all of them. Like, I know some of y'all out there, for you, it's like Makoto, right? She's the best. I think that's a great pick. I ain't gonna hate on anybody for Makoto being their favorite in the Phantom Thieves. Or maybe your favorite's Haru. That's cool too. Travis's favorite's Haru. I think that's a great pick. She is a sweetheart. How could you hate on her? You know, she does show up later in the game, which you get that with each of the Persona games that I've played, 3, 4, and 5. There are characters that show up later in the game, and you wish you could have spent more time with them. The teacher's really cool. The fortune teller is cool. The journalist is cool. I don't know if she's a doctor, nurse, pediatrician, or whatever, but if you play the game, you know who I'm talking about. She's cool. The shogi player is really cool. Awesome characters. The video game kid is really cool. Like, and all their stories. And that is another thing these Persona games managed to nail, is the relationship building. What makes them so much fun is getting to learn more about these characters. And it's really great that they don't just do the characters in your friend group. Right? There are characters other than them that you can meet, like at your school, at the arcade, at a church for Persona 5. That's where you meet the shogi player. And it's just so wonderful. I wish I could tell you that I've managed to max out all my relationships in any of the games, but I haven't. The closest I ever came was Persona 4 Golden on my second playthrough. I was 1 away. I had everyone at max 10 except one person. I had them at rank 9. And I thought I still had time to get them to 10, and I didn't. And I was so heartbroken. I was like, you gotta be kidding me, because now I gotta play this again. I didn't have multiple save points, and I should have. That was a mistake by me. And I haven't gone back to the game since. It's like, I know I could max out all these relationships if I played it again. But after that, I was just like, no, I can't. Man, one day I will. Maybe Persona 3 Reload. Maybe that will be the one. I didn't go too into depth with Persona 5 in terms of what actually happens in the game. I mean, I've talked about it a little bit when bringing up other Persona games, but I'm going to go into a little more detail, because I'm going to talk about Persona 5 Royal, and yes, I've got a physical copy right here on PS4. If you like Persona 5 and you just want more of it like I did when I beat it, get Persona 5 Royal. But I did pay full price for Persona 5 Royal. It was $60. I remember the day when I bought it. I went to GameStop, my local GameStop. Yes, I still shop at GameStop. I know some of you are like, how could you do that? They suck. And it's like, yeah, I know. When it comes to like used games, they're not great. But when it comes to the new games that come out, they got it. And they're in great shape. So I still think in terms of getting new games, GameStop is A-okay. But I was going there to pre-order Persona 5 Strikers, which we will talk about next. But while I was there, I was like, man, I don't really have any new games. I don't really have any games I want to play, any old games I want to play. And I'm pre-ordering Strikers, but it's not coming out for like another month and a half. So I was there and I was just trying to think, what should I get? I gotta get a game to hold me over until I get Strikers. And then I thought, well, I don't have Persona 5 Royal, and Travis told me I should get Persona 5 Royal. It's worth the $60. So I asked the guy, I was like, you got a copy of it? And he's like, yep. And I was like, all right, I'll take it. And I am really glad I did. One of the best purchases I made in terms of video games, because Royal really does do enough to justify it as a separate game to buy rather than DLC. Because I think some people thought this should have just been DLC to buy, like we shouldn't have to pay $60 for Persona 5 again, just with added content. And I get that. I think that's a fair argument, but I didn't mind personally. So for those of you who don't know, which, gosh, I imagine if you're clicking on this, you'd probably know what happens in Persona 5. But basically, let me know if this sounds familiar to you who have played Persona 4. You end up going from one city to another where you will be spending a year living with someone else who, in this case, is a friend of the family. And you're going to live in the attic of his coffee shop for a year. You're going to transfer to the school in that place, and you're going to make new friends, and Persona things happen. Like I said, these games like to follow a blueprint, but I mean, what video game franchise doesn't follow a blueprint? Mario 2D games follow a blueprint, right? Gosh, I already brought up the characters. Such great characters. Phantom Thieves are such a memorable cast. And the voice acting, another thing, and across all the Persona games I played, top tier. The dub is so good, but I believe the sub is available too for those of you who want the sub. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, play it how you want to play it. But in this game, you end up getting this app on your phone that you didn't install, and you're like, what the heck is this? And you try to get rid of it, but it doesn't go away, and then eventually you end up accidentally using it and take yourself to an alternate dimension. This one's called the Metaverse, and it's there that you see all the changes. The school turns into a castle, and it's run by the PE teacher who has like a dark side to him that is revealed here in this Metaverse. Because that's the thing, when you encounter each different palace, as they're called, and the ruler, in the regular world, they put on a facade to make him seem like a good guy, right? Like, oh, you know, nothing wrong with me. I'm good. I'm a role model even. They're corrupt. And it's done really well. This game, I don't think it really pulls its punches either. It's so good. And, oh my gosh. Just each of them, like, you go to a castle for the first one, and it's there where it's you, Ryuji, Morgana, and then eventually An joins. And I love how you give each other different nicknames. And, it's so good. I love the idea of you have to have the person manifest a physical form of like their deepest desires, or that gives them a symbol of pride. Something like that. I don't remember the exact details, but you get what I'm saying if you've played the games. And Royal is all of that, plus an extra semester. And my goodness, playing Royal, I played it at such a good time in my life. I had just quit a job that I had worked for a few years, tried another job, worked that for not even a whole day before I realized this ain't for me. And so I went through job hunting, and it would be a month where I had no job. I was job hunting every day, filling out applications online, in person, just waiting for something to happen. But when I was done with the job applying, I would turn on the PlayStation 4 and play Persona 5 Royal, and it was like I was on vacation, man. I don't recommend, quitting your job if you can't afford it and then not working for a month, but I was fortunate enough to where I could afford that at the time. I wouldn't be able to do that today. But yeah, for that whole month, I played Royal, beat it, and I got the extra semester, which was so good. So good, in fact, that if you haven't played Royal and you haven't played the extra semester on Royal, I'm not going to spoil for you, because it really is, I think it's that freaking good. But yeah, if you haven't played any of the Persona 5 games, I would recommend just getting Royal at this point. I wouldn't recommend getting regular and then Royal, because it's the same deal like with Persona 4 and Persona 4 Golden and Persona 4 Arena and Arena Ultimax. Like, what should you get? Like, just get the one that's basically the original game, but with more content. The next one we're going to talk about, which I have a physical case of, Persona 5 Strikers. I have mixed feelings on this one. I'm not gonna lie. I like it, but gosh, the whole time I was playing it, I just kind of thought, like, I kind of wish I was playing just Persona 5 Royal, Like, I had just beaten Persona 5 Royal, and then I picked up my pre-order of Strikers, and I was excited. I was like, I'm in the Persona mood after playing Royal and just having such a great time with that. I'm so in the mood. And Strikers is a sequel. It's a sequel to Persona 5, so I'm like, heck yeah, I want a sequel. I want to see more of what the Phantom Thieves are going to do. And the story itself, really good. Like I said, they've yet to disappoint me with these games' stories and characters and music. All that stuff. Great. But this is missing stuff that... it makes it almost not feel like a Persona game. You know? Like, you can't build relationships. You can't build social stats. There's no getting a part-time job. You don't go to school because the story of Persona 5 Strikers happens during summer break. Right? So the main character, he's coming back to Cafe LeBlanc, which is where he stayed for a year, to reunite with his friends, the Phantom Thieves, to have a big summer vacation. At first they think, yeah, it's going to be fun, not going to have to worry about anything, but it isn't long until it's like, uh-oh, looks like Persona things are going to happen. It's good. Like, it's... like I said, I got mixed feelings. It's kind of tough to talk about this one because I don't want to make it sound like this game's not worth playing. I do think it's worth playing if you liked Persona 5 and you want a sequel, you want to see these characters do more things together, then sure, get the game, especially if you can find it on sale. I think you would probably like it, and if you are into like Dynasty Warriors or the Hyrule Warriors games, this is what the gameplay is like. It's like those games, which I'm not too crazy about. I never played a Dynasty Warriors games or Hyrule Warrior, mainly because it's just they didn't look like anything that would really appeal to me. But it does the job. It does the job. The gameplay is not bad. And it is that style. So if you like that style, I would recommend this game. And I will say, as someone who doesn't like turn-based combat, going from turn-based combat in Persona 5 Royal to the combat in Strikers definitely felt like an upgrade. It did. Honestly, I kind of wish and hope that Persona 6, whenever that comes out, but I'm sure it's going to come out, I would rather ditch the turn-based combat and go to something similar like Strikers. But that's an unpopular opinion, I'm sure. I think most Persona fans would rather see the turn-based combat continue and just be built upon and improved upon, which I want that too. It's just if it was up to me, I'd just ditch turn-based entirely and just do something similar to Strikers. One more, and then that's it. This video's been going for a little while, I know. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Maybe you ought to subscribe if you haven't. If you have, thank you for keeping the Animen dream alive. But let's talk about this game. Persona 5 Tactica. This game just came out late last year, 2023, and I got it as a Christmas gift. And, I think of all the Persona games I've played, this one's not the least good. That would be Persona 4 Arena. But, of the 4 Persona 5 games, right? Because there's 4 Persona 5 games. All right, and I've got all of them in the physical case, like I showed you. Regular Persona 5, Royal, Strikers, and then finally Tactica, which I think is probably going to be the last Persona 5 game, if I'm being honest. I mean, maybe it won't be, but I think it will be. And of the 4, if I were to rank the Persona 5 games, Tactica would be 4th. This game I beat, I want to say, in like 40 hours, which is fine. That's plenty of time. But it felt shorter than that. Like, this game did not go very long, or at least, like I said, didn't feel very long. Not necessarily a bad thing, but you're kind of used to it with Persona. You're used to the game going for a long time, or at least feeling like it did, but not in a bad way. You know, it just felt like a really long but excellent, awesome, memorable journey. Persona 5 Tactica was pretty forgettable in terms of its gameplay, which, man, you know, it's not bad. It takes the tactic approach, much like Final Fantasy Tactics or Disgaea, I can never remember what that's pronounced. I think my biggest surprise with the game was just how easy it was. This was a really easy game. And I had it on normal mode, which is the mode I normally choose when I play a game for the first time. If it has a difficulty setting, I just go normal, you know? I don't need it to be hard. I don't need it to be easy. Just give me normal. But I thought at one point, I thought maybe I accidentally chose easy mode because holy crap, at no point in the game was it hard. Was it the slightest bit challenging, except for like 3 side missions, which I did admittedly have to look up how to do them because I was stumped. But that wasn't so much because I kept dying or anything. It was just because I had to get rid of all the enemies in one turn. I just was like, well, I can't figure this out. I can't get rid of all of them in one turn. But yeah, like in terms of like your characters dying or whatever, it's actually harder for your characters to die than to not die. Like one time I purposely had a character die to do a baton pass because I hadn't done one up to that point in the game, and I just wanted to see it, and like it took forever. It really did. So if you do want to play this game but you don't like when games are really easy, maybe play this on hard mode. I think there's a mode even harder than that. I think like merciless mode or something. You might need to try merciless mode, in all honesty, because hard mode might feel like normal mode, you know? I can't even imagine how easy this game must be on easy mode. In terms of tactics style games, it has a couple cool ideas, but it still feels very bare basic. And it's like, if you want to play a tactical game and you're choosing between, say, Persona 5 Tactica and, let's say, Final Fantasy Tactics, I would say pick Final Fantasy Tactics. The gameplay in that is much better. It's more challenging, but also feels more rewarding when you overcome the odds. With this game, it's like, if you really like Persona 5 and you want more Persona 5, then okay, go ahead and get this game, but don't get it for $70. Like I said, I got it as a gift, but the person who bought it for me, they paid full price, they paid $70. Wait till this game's like $50. This feels more like a $40 to $50 game. Like, I don't hate the game. It kind of sounds like I do, right? It kind of sounds like I hate this game. I don't. You know, maybe I am a little bit underwhelmed. I wouldn't say disappointed is really the word, because I didn't really have any expectations going into this. I just figured it's got to at least be good, right? And it's like, it's okay. You know, it's okay. It's not $70 okay, but it's okay. So, in terms of the story, I don't want to really spoil it because it is a newer game that just came out, and maybe you're interested in getting it. Like I said, if you are, get it, but wait for a price drop. And that is it, guys. Holy cow, we just went over every Persona game that I've played. So, not every Persona game that's ever existed. I just remembered I did not bring up the Persona rhythm games. That is because I haven't played those either. There's like 3 of them, right? There's like a Persona 3, 4, and 5 rhythm game. I've seen some gameplay for it, and it's exactly what I thought it was. It's a rhythm game. And that's not really my thing. The only rhythm games I've ever enjoyed were Guitar Hero, and that's because you used a guitar controller. But yeah, that's it, guys. This video has gone long enough. If you stuck around for the whole thing, thank you so much. We're trying something new here at Animen. It's a new year, and we really want to try and make something happen with this channel. And this is a start. I want to do more videos like this where I talk about anime video games. I'm going to try to keep it just anime video games because this is an anime YouTube channel. But who knows, maybe later down the line I'll talk about games that maybe technically aren't anime, but maybe feel like anime. You know, like the Final Fantasy games, they might not be anime. I don't know if they're categorized as such, but they kind of come across, right? So maybe I'll talk about the Final Fantasy games I played, the Dragon Ball games I played, the Naruto games I played. There's plenty of options out there. There's tons of anime games out there that I've played and haven't played, and I might pick some up to do reviews or something like this on those games I haven't played yet, you know? Who knows, I might make a video on Persona 3 Reload. We'll see, though. You know, I make no promises, but thanks again for watching, guys. If you liked it, Thank you so much. I appreciate it. If there is games you want me to talk about, the comment section's there. Let me hear it. In the meantime, I'm Zach, signing off for the Animen YouTube channel. And I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for watching! If you're not subscribed, be sure to do so by clicking here. If you are subscribed, we thank you for keeping the Animen dream alive. Be sure to check out our other content here and here. For even more content, be sure to check out the rest of our channel and be sure to follow us on Twitter by clicking the link in the description below. I'm Felicia, and I'll see you next time.